So I went back through the videos that I've made since the very first day that these teams started scrimming, and this is actually the very first scrim featuring this Seattle Surge. I don't know if this is the first time that they've played. My guess would be this is not the first matchup in the Black Ops Cold War era between OpTic Chicago and the Seattle Surge, but I went back through every video that I've made throughout the Scrim analysis videos of Black Ops Cold War, and this is actually the very first one facing off against the Seattle Surge. So this is a team that a lot of people are interested in. I think when it comes to different power rankings that are around the scene, I think some people are trying to decide, are these guys going to be for real? Or obviously they have insane talent at the AR position from Octane, and we all know what Gunless is capable of, as long as, you know, the vibes are good and everybody's getting along. But what are they really going to get at that SMG position from Pristini and from Looney? I don't know, to me that just seems like that's the single biggest question from Seattle. And I will say, throughout the course of this scrim, now again, this came up in my comments from yesterday's video. I try to do my best to go through and give you guys a rundown of how the scrim went as a whole, so that it doesn't just seem like I'm cherry picking the one map that OpTic wins. I really don't try to do that, but I do think that it's easier to learn more from maps that they win than from maps that they lose, just seeing how rotations work out and all that. But I just wanted to go ahead and point that out there, just so it seemed to be a big topic of discussion yesterday. But in this scrim, on the 4 Hardpoint maps, OpTic went 4-0, and 2 of them were super ugly. So the one you could probably guess is Moscow. When it comes to Moscow, I really do think that that's Chicago's best map. I would be shocked if, when we finally get to the actual league season, I would be shocked if that's not the first map that teams veto, because OpTic plays Moscow really well. Dashi had so the map on Moscow, it was something like 250 to 80 or 250 to 70. It was somewhere in that range. They just absolutely blew him out of the water. And Dashi had an insane score. Like, Dashi's damage numbers were twice as high as anybody else. So I think when you take what Dashi's capable of with an AR and what Formal's capable of with an AR, and you take those long lines of sight on a map like Moscow, where you have to push up, you know, those long sight lines, whether it's in P4 or up by Eskies trying to get to P3, or even in P2 trying to push P2 from mid from P1 on Moscow, it's just really hard for teams to get through there when you have Dashi and Formal set up. So on Moscow, that map was out of control. This is the one that really surprised me, but I'm not sure that it should, because this is a map. So when you're talking about Crossroads as a whole, it's a map that Chicago struggles on against teams that have elite level SMGs. So we're talking about the Atlantas with SCUMP and Abizi, the Dallases with Shotzi, like squads like that where SMGs are top tier. This map is so fast and it's so small. I'm not saying that Chicago is bad at the SMGs, because we all know Envoy's a perennial MVP candidate, and SCUMP has looked incredible this year. I think SCUMP has been their most consistent player this year. But if it comes down to comparing ARs or comparing SMGs, I would say that it might be a little bit harder for OpTic to hang with some of the top tier SMGs that are out there. So a map like this that's super small and super fast and can be SMG dominant, it's one that, you know, that they might struggle on a little bit. But this map, I mean, they played great, and we've kind of seen that so far in the first set of rotations. They did a nice job building up like a 40-50 point lead inside of P1. They did get flipped just for a brief moment as it rotated over to P2, but they were able to break that almost immediately. And then as it went to P3, they broke P3. They got those old P4 spawns for new P4, and all of a sudden they've got a 120 point lead and the map's halfway over before you even knew it. You can see that SCUMP is obviously on a roll. He just called in his cruise missile here. So the only thing with that is normally I get that they're excited. They have a 120-point lead. It's not the biggest of deals, but normally you want to try to get beyond mid-map before you call those streaks, because if you pop streaks like right here when they come up off of spawn, even if you get 4 dead, you're not close enough to those P2 spawns to be able to flip them out for P2. So that's like kind of the only gripe there. But I'm sure if this was, you know, main stage and a grand final, a winner's final or whatever, things would be a little bit different in when they're calling streaks. But I just wanted to go through and point that out. But so far, again, P1 came to a close. They gave up a little bit of time inside of P1, and P2 has been popped for 15 seconds or so, and Seattle's just starting to get in. So they're doing a nice job of getting to the other side of the map. And just like that, there's one other person left. It's probably Octane, and I think he just went down. Yeah, so Octane just went down to Dashy, and there you go. So they're spawning out again. They have control of P2, and they've just been doing a fantastic job. You can see right there, SCUMP is 30 and 14. He's still got streaks, so I'm sure after they get the last 20 seconds here inside of this P2 hardpoint, he's going to invest those streaks as it goes over to P3 so that they can flip spawns, have spawns for P3 and P4. And this is just a dominant performance. And I think this might be where you see a little bit of a struggle from Seattle. That's the biggest question for them, right? When it comes to Octane, obviously Octane talent-wise, you could probably say is the best main AR in competitive Call of Duty. We know that Gunless is unbelievably talented. Now, you can talk about the intangibles and, you know, it is what it is. But if things are good and vibes are going well, he's a monster. The question is always, we didn't see Looney at all last year, and Pristini, what we did see of him last year, both on Florida and when he finally went to Chicago, it was so-so, right? You could easily say that OpTic makes it into that championship weekend without having to go through OpTic. Chicago Huntsmen make it through the 2 championship weekend in that matchup against the Atlanta FaZe before they got dropped down to losers bracket. You could say that if Pristini plays just a little bit better, they probably end up beating Atlanta and they make it all the way through without even having to drop down to losers bracket. But he put up like a 0.6 or a 0.65, and he did not have a good map. And it is what it is. You can see right here the streaks are being invested. It's 240 to 75. But Looney and Pristini, that's going to be the question mark all year long when it comes down to Seattle. And just like that, we get a 250 to 75 victory. We have 5,300 damage here from SCUMP. Dashy had 4,100, Envoy 3,300, Formal 3,400. Looks like he ran through the rest of the numbers real quick. 26 for Envoy. I think it said 31 for Dashy. I really wish that we could actually see the scoreboards. I hate the fact that Treyarch does this with all of their games, but Dashy dropped pretty big numbers while still getting 130 seconds inside the hardpoint. When you go ahead, look over at the other side, Octane had 2,800 damage, and everybody was pretty close, right? Again, we can't see all their damage numbers, but Octane had 1,400 score, Looney had 1,300, Gunless and Pristini both had 1,200. So, I don't know. I wish that we could see more. I wish that, you know, Octane would stream or Pristini would stream or somebody would stream so that we could get a little bit of a better idea, like how does Seattle play against London, or how do they play against Minnesota, or how do they play against some of those other teams that are right there in the middle, the Floridas of the world, the New Yorks of the world. I think when you go through and you talk about power rankings, it's tough for me because I feel like New York has a question mark or two, Florida has a question mark or two, but there's a group of teams that are kind of right there in the middle. And when it comes, for me personally, when it comes to Seattle, where do you put them amongst that group? So I wish that we could see them a little bit more against the New Yorks, the Floridas, the Minnesotas, the LA Thieves. And are they getting rolled by those squads also, or are they kind of holding their own? That's a question that's obviously going to be answered here in just the next month or so. Hopefully the season gets going soon, because it's been quite a long off season. But if you guys are new around here, you enjoy this sort of content, make sure you go ahead, hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you don't mind, as that really helps out the channel. And with that, thank you guys so much. We will see you in tomorrow's upload.